Good evening, good morning, or good afternoon, depending on where you're at. This is Jeremy. I'm so excited to come to you for another Coffee with Jeremy. And this time we're going to also add tea with Rob. So Rob, good to have you here. I'm glad you're joining us. You and I are going to be doing lots more of these together, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit. But before I dive really into why we're here and talking more about Rob joining us and what we have coming up, I thought it would just be kind of neat to think about what has happened over the last year. I'm hoping each of you got the end of the year mailer that we sent out, was really excited about some of the stuff that we put into that, and I was also excited about the work that we have been doing. Lots of summits were facilitated, creating really good strategic plans of action, had a good diversification of business, branching out from just working with nonprofit clients to also working with government agencies like departments of health and companies like Asakura Robinson or even Russo Power in Chicago. Just really excited about some of the stuff that we've been able to help them do and some of the stuff that we are going to be able to help others do in 2017. So if you want to see more about those successes, remember you can always find all the links to our websites and so forth just by going to coffeewithjeremy.tv, or you can go straight to the company website at sgendeavors.com. We've got some new blog posts out that's talking about some of the stuff coming up, and we're going to get more into that now. Also want to say if you've got questions along the way, we'd love to hear those or get those into our chat. So please feel free to respond right there on YouTube, or you can tweet us or post something to our Facebook page if you'd really like to do that. Just be sure to use that hashtag Coffee with Jeremy so that we can pick all those up and make sure that we keep them all integrated with the show. So again, a big thanks to John and Ryan for handling logistics and so forth. And we're going to be hearing from John and the media line of business of our company in just a little bit too. So really excited. This is very exciting to me. So I actually met you, Rob, I think probably 7 or 8 years ago, and I didn't realize it had been that long. It may not, I think it was about 7 or 8 years ago. And when I met Rob, I was working for Alliance for Biking and Walking. And the Alliance's job was to provide support, guidance, coaching, organization development, and training to our member organizations that were working on biking and walking. And Rob, I remember meeting you when you worked at Active Transportation Alliance during the small group facilitation training. I'm not sure that I had actually really talked with you much before that, maybe a couple times, but during the small group facilitation training that I took. And I loved your style. I like to describe it as energetic is what I like to say, because you keep me on my toes and you've always challenged me to think bigger and to think more systematically about how things are doing. And so I'm excited that you are doing some consulting and working on projects, and I'm going to start working on projects with S&G. I think Rob brings a lot of really awesome skills and background to our work. And again, I just love the way that you challenge me each day to think larger about the projects that we're doing and to think more holistically to make sure that we're better serving our clients. So I wanted to introduce Rob. Rob, we're going to get it more into the trainings and stuff that we're going to be doing to highlight some of the skills and project work that we'll be working on with clients as well. But talk with us a little bit about you and, tell us a little bit about you and what excites you about this new journey for you.
Well, thanks, Jeremy. Thanks for that introduction. I have coming off a 12-year basically stint working in bicycle, walking, and public transit advocacy. But that's just sort of the tip of what I've been working on through my career. I graduated from college with a focus on energy and environmental planning, and then went right into affordable housing. Kind of shows you that, you know, whatever you study doesn't necessarily impact what those next steps you take in your life. And I've just kind of followed the path along where I've been able to work and focused on affordable housing, particularly around resident management and housing cooperatives. And that's where I first learned to train, or learned to be a trainer. I had an experience that was unbelievable in Madison, Wisconsin, just a short 2.5, almost 3-year period of time, training low-income families on managing housing cooperatives, teaching them how to run meetings, teaching them a variety of skill sets, bringing them together, helping them, in some cases, mediate, foster relationships, build rules and systems so that they can work together. And I kind of leapfrogged that on over the years until eventually I became an executive director of a nonprofit focused on housing cooperatives in Chicago, where I worked with some pretty large projects, some very 250 unit or larger 400 unit affordable housing projects that were subsidized by the federal government, that were going through resident management conversions, and have those wonderful experiences through there, and somehow tripped accidentally into transportation through a variety of reasons, partly because I was on the board of directors and had this opportunity. What I'm excited to bring to S&G Endeavors and to folks out there in the nonprofit and government world, or even in the small entrepreneurial world, is a way of thinking about how to level up that organization that you're in, how to take where you are right now and think a little bit bigger. That might be just a little bit bigger. It might be going from a 1-person staff to a 4-person team that can deliver in new ways. It could be taking you from the middle level of say a 10-person staff up to that 25 different range. Through strategic conversations, dialogue, coaching, or direct training, management training, etc. One of the really complicated things in the world of nonprofits is you can't really sign up for one of those traditional management classes. They don't really teach you how to manage nonprofits, and they don't teach you how to manage the employees that fall into the nonprofit world. So I'm excited to try to find a way to reach out to folks who might be interested in that. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a later conversation that we're hosting online through our conversations or virtual conversations around how to work with an executive coach. So I'm looking forward to having folks join me, ask questions, and learn about that.
And I know, you know, one of the things that I think is really neat is that a lot of the work that we do, Rob, the coaching is always such a key to it. And I was talking with some colleagues, and we kind of determined that 25 or 30% of our work, even if it's a strategic planning project or a 3-year planning project, a lot of times you end up coaching or executive coaching either the client or sometimes the management team on ways that they can do different things better. Because it never fears that there's always an internal component to it, even if as we talk about when we're talking about the DVF model is all about creating first steps and vision for how we're going to go and how we're going to help the organization succeed. But there's always this implementation or supporting mechanisms concept as well that's part of that model that says you got to make sure that you have to make sure that when you're looking at that model, that you put the supporting mechanisms in place, like a strong board, totally good communications. DVF, by the way, just for those of you who may be joining us for the first time, stands for dissatisfaction, vision, and first steps. And the model basically says that if you create all of those and you put them all together where none of them are zero, and you include supporting mechanisms that are going to help you succeed, you are able to overcome the resistance to change. It's the model that we have talked about on our blog in the past that supports a lot of the summit work that we do, because people are really brought into the creating dissatisfaction, creating vision for how we yearn for things to be, and the first steps, or in my world, we call them action plans that'll help you get there. So
that's really good, Jeremy. One of the things that I really believe in is that no matter how long you take to do planning, you could do short and dirty planning that takes weeks. You could do long-term planning that might take years. But either way, you can always start making change right away. You don't have to wait for the plan to be written, typed up into a computer, and then produced and approved by a board before you can start working on some of the deficiencies or challenges that you're facing.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome stuff. I'm just really excited and about those different skills that you do, and I think we've already seen and started applying for some of those projects that we're going to be working on, and actually with some of the changes that were made to the Nebraska project, Rob, we may actually be getting you out to Nebraska. That's even news to you at this point, because that just happened this morning. So we may actually be able to have you join us for one of our summits that we're facilitating in Nebraska, and really give people an opportunity who are going to be in that particular one to meet you face to face. And then there's all these other training opportunities that we have coming up. And one of the things that we have really been talking about at S&G Endeavors is really looking at the consulting that we do and working with our clients to build stronger teams, to do the executive coaching, the long-range strategic planning, or even just meeting facilitation and that type of work. But really building on that, and as we see with the SGE Media business line, we're really taking those skills, and John is leading a lot of projects that help us apply those concepts, but to media, to creating independent media, and if you will, a 21st century network of strong media partners to help change media for the better in this country. And I think the other piece that I love that we're starting to do is SGE training, and really looking at how can we take some of the skills that we're using with our clients and actually, work on the transference piece, as my friend Dr. Steve Cady used to talk about when we were being trained, and really look at how do we transfer some of these skills to our clients and give those training opportunities that help them do it better. And so we are launching what I would consider 2 lines at this point of training. The first one being 3 in-person, intense, dynamic facilitation workshops, or smart group facilitation workshops. Kind of like the one that I participated in when Rob and I first met. And Rob, I honestly have been waiting for about 3 to 4 years to formally launch this, so I'm really excited that we're doing this. We're going to be having 3 of those come up this year, and I'm wondering if maybe you might want to just talk a little bit more about the experience that our people might get by going through the training you and I are going to lead, and sure. Then we can summarize it if you want by just talking about the dates and locations. I can do that too if you need me to.
Well, let me just kind of start and paint the picture. It really is about a lot of the work that people do, and particularly in the world of advocacy and in the world of education, as well as in the world of customer work in social service, is around building leadership. And when I was doing housing cooperative work years ago, I went through this training called the Training for Trainers Cooperative. It's a national group that was focused on, you can't just tell people what to do. You need to build leadership and build skill sets so people can do things together. And the best way to do that is through small group work. And I think anyone who's gone through, whether it's a formal workshop, strategic planning, the difference between being in a large group of 30 people and trying to get your word out and your voice heard versus being in a small group of 5 is really meaningful and impactful. So the idea of this training is to teach people participants, how to be great trainers. It's as simple as that. You'll have an opportunity to be one of 10 and only 10 participants in a trainer. We may be able to boost that depending upon the numbers, that learn through action and through direct feedback loops right away on how you're doing. So you'll learn how to craft small group activities and run craft activities, how to use things like newsprint and markers, how to ensure that the people who are in the room are feeling empowered and not feeling like they're being stepped on. Some very simple tools, all of which have been fine-tuned over years of work by labor unions, by people in the housing cooperative world, and people in nonprofit advocacy work. Let me talk a little bit about who it's good for, because it's not just for anyone. It's not someone who's going to be doing, say, early childhood education. We're not training teachers to be in a classroom. We're teaching people to do adult theory education using small group activity. So I liken it for people who are, maybe you're in the planning world and you do a lot of planning charrettes or design charrettes. Maybe you're an architect and you do design charrettes and you want some better skills. Maybe you're a little nervous standing in the room, because we'll work with you on how to play that role. Maybe you're a community organizer and you do a lot of work in communities where you got a lot of folks in the room and you don't want to be just talking at them. You want them to be developing ideas and working on solutions for community involvement and engagement. It's great for community organizers. It's also great for people who are doing adult education, whether it's people in Outward Bound or other kind of programs that you find yourself having to develop curriculum. Maybe you're just thrown into it and you've never had a formal way of learning how to do this work. We can teach you and really build your skill set. And so that's kind of the focus of it. I know the people who have done advocacy work, who do a lot of public meeting work. I'll give you an example. Most recently here in Portland, we did some work where we were training a group of tenants through the Community Alliance of Tenants in Portland how to do public testimony in preparation for an organizing campaign that we were working on in Safe Routes to School. So rather than just read to them, here's how you do public testimony, you provide an opportunity for people to have hands-on experience, try out their public testimony, learn from that experience, talk to each other as a group, and then try again and get better. And the result of that is rather than professional organizers or professional advocates being in the front of the room testifying either at a city council meeting or, say, a state Senate hearing, you've got real people who are impacted by that work testifying. So it helps loop those through services with a formal way of doing that training. We love it. I went through it myself in 1987 and just completely fell in love. It's still today the best training I've ever been to. And I think anyone who's interested, we have information. We can get you direct information about the curriculum. It is a 2.25 day training. It's all or nothing. You have to be in all those hours, and it's intense. We are going to work you. You're going to have an opportunity to meet some great people and develop some great content. The first 2 workshops, let me pull up the screen. I'm in full screen, so let me just pull that up. The first 2 workshops are going to focus on the skill set that you'll be getting. So the opportunity for learning how to do the trainings themselves. The first one is March 23rd through 25th in Washington, D.C. if it's not burnt to the ground by then or the swamp hasn't been drained. And then the second one will be this fall in Cleveland, Ohio, September 21st through 22nd. Basically, you're going to come in that first night. So just walk you through. If you were coming into Cleveland, you come into the late afternoon, evening of the 21st, meet the other folks that you're going to be training with, just sort of get to know everybody, learn each other's names, and then come on in that next morning on the, so you'll actually come in probably the 20th, coming in on the 21st and get going. And by the end of the 22nd, you'll be a trainer. And then we're going to follow that finally with a 3rd training in Chicago, November 15th, 16th, and 17th. And that will be a more intensive training. They'll take you to the next level and focus a lot on the curriculum side. How do you write not just one work activity, but how do you take that to the next level and really create more in-depth curriculum, 90-minute, 2-hour, 3-hour workshops from that. And the hope will be that between those 2 trainings, we came to the March training, you'll have some months of doing some training and experiencing it, and then you can come back with some questions. Hey, this happened, how do I do this better? So you can take a look at our website, sgendeavors.com. You can find that information on our trainings page.
Yeah, and you can actually go to sgendeavors.com/training and actually get there directly. Excuse me, guys and gals. Rob, I'm really excited, like I said, to be training this. I think this is It's the key to so many things that are in the action plans of what our organizations come up with. And so, thinking just from some of the clients that we work with, Asakura Robinson, for example, being a planning design company, and they're doing charrettes like this all the time, or charrettes that this would benefit from. And so I just think that there's a lot of opportunity there to really teach this particular piece. And I also think it's important when we are doing planning to be able to approach it from a perspective of engaging everybody and not, I used to say top-downing it. I think now
Right.
I like the phrase talking at them and not doing that, but instead talking with people. And so we have those in-person training opportunities. One of the other things that we, John and I have been talking about doing for years, I know we've talked with some of you about it, is we wanted to do a better job of taking some of the skills that we're using and doing some more affordable virtual trainings for our clients and our potential clients. So this gives you an opportunity to really get to see what we do, to get to learn how we train, and to really evaluate whether those 3 in-person trainings might be something that you want to consider. And if you go to our website at sgendeavors.com/conversations, you'll find 4 virtual conversations that we are in the process of hosting. And you'll see that the first 3 are really almost, I would say there might be some minor edits to descriptions, but most everything is up. And there's places for you to actually register for all of them. Our first one is on February 28th, and basically we're doing it every 2 weeks from that time. And so, Rob, why don't you talk about 2 of them that you're leading, and then I'm going to actually ask John from the media line of business to talk about one that you're leading on Zoom, and then I'll come in and talk about the last one. Again, I chose to do sgendeavors.com/conversations because, and really calling these virtual conversations, because we wanted to make sure that, this is a conversation. If you're doing the training in a good way, it's creating a virtual conversation around these particular areas. Some are telling you about what we do and giving you a little bit more detail about that. Some are going to help you in increasing your own approaches to things, just like the small group facilitation trainings do. So let's talk through some of these. So Rob, what do we have coming up on February 28th?
So on February 28th, we're talking about taking your nonprofit to the next level, particularly looking at an auditing tool for your organization. A lot of nonprofits conduct a financial audit every year as part of their requirements for grants and other things. But this is really about looking at all the other areas of the organization, the sort of social aspects, the accountability side of the organization that goes beyond just the financials. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lead you through kind of why you would want to do it. And we have developed a downloadable audit tool. We'll talk through, folks can have an opportunity to get a copy of that and look at it, learn how to use it yourself as a self-diagnostic tool. And we'll also talk a little bit about how to take your organization to that next level after you use that tool. So it's not just a piece of paper sitting on a shelf, but it's a tool to get your organization to be thinking about how to take that next step. So to give you an example, will be one of the things on the audit would be, do you have personnel policies? And well, you don't. What do you do? So the opportunity to begin to thinking about, why would I want to do that? We will take questions. We'll take that to be an opportunity. It's not just a conversation between Jeremy and I. It actually be an opportunity for anyone who's participating to be a part of that. So we encourage you to sign up. This is a workshop that has a nominal fee, but we really think you'll have a really outstanding experience in that conversation, what can help you level up your organization to the next level.
Awesome. Sorry about that. All right. And Rob, I apologize. Executive coaching.
That's the next one, right?
Yeah. Let's go ahead and have you do that one as well. I should have told you. Let's do
So,
both.
okay, so the executive coaching
Sorry.
workshop is March 14th, the day before the Ides of March. This is a free workshop. It's on working with an executive coach. Why would you do it? What can you do for organizations? How does it work? What are the kind of experiences? How do you set up even starting to have a conversation with a coach? What does it cost? We'll kind of talk you through that. It's ideal for people who are at high levels in an organization, executive director, associate director, or a high level manager. So it's not something where you want to send someone who's never been a boss before and it's just managing one part of your program. This is the kind of thing that we're talking about, sort of getting, helping you level up, particularly thinking yourself, how do you fit with an organization and what executive coaching is all about. It is just Tuesday, March 14th, 4 to 5 Eastern time, or 1 to 2 my time here on the Pacific Coast. It's a great opportunity. We use a really nice software called Zoom, gets everyone engaged.
Thank you very much, Rob. Sorry for the miscommunication there. Again, I think that these are really, first of all, I love the nonprofit tool. Rob, when you brought this, I was so excited. I actually made some guy that was sitting beside me on a plane look at it with me, and was really just very exciting about it, and sparked a whole conversation around what nonprofits do. He was kind of intrigued about it. So thank you for really putting this together, and I'm really excited to see a lot of our clients who we have worked with are nonprofit organizations. And so I encourage everybody to check those out. And the executive coaching one, I think that'll give you a little bit more insight about what you can expect from those services and what that would look like. One of the things that also excites me, John, popping over to you and the media line of business there, and feel free to tell us a little bit more about the media line of business if you want. But we're also going to be putting one on here about Zoom. And so maybe just give us a brief preview of that and tell us a little bit about that.
Sure, Jeremy. So on the media side, we run conversations like these. We meet in Zoom. We're actually meeting in Zoom right now, and that is interfacing with our broadcasting software. And we're broadcasting live on YouTube and Facebook. So that is one component of kind of the media line, and working with organizations like the Global Engagement Network, Nexus for Change, and G1NBC to work with their stakeholders and their customers to create dynamic broadcasting environments that promote the value of having conversations and bringing people together. So we align with organizations that do that. As far as using Zoom and how we use our process to create and manage breakout groups, we really look at the collaborative principle, which is called systemic breathing in an organization. And when you think about managing breakout groups, you look at 3 different levels of the organization: individual, group, and whole. Now that can be, when I say organization, it can be a team. It can be a group of people that are just starting out. It can be the entire organization, or it can be stakeholders. But when you have people into a meeting, it's important to always go through that systemic breathing process. And what that means is you start at the individual level, and you give everybody a chance to be heard and have their opinion or have their wisdom brought into the room. Then you use groups to kind of dispel all of the individual stuff and turn it into, like, what are some themes that are coming out from what people are saying. And then whole means you take those discussions that you have in your groups and you bring it back to the whole group, or the whole number of people that are on the call. Or in sometimes when we're having large summits, you bring it back to the whole organization. And so what we'll do on April 11th is just learn some tips and dive more into that principle of systemic breathing, and dive into that individual, group, whole at a deeper level, and really talk about how to use Zoom to help make that happen.
Awesome, John.
So, yeah, thanks for having me come in.
No, I think it's really great, and I think it's one thing that we are perfecting every day. I think we even started with a different software in the beginning, and stumbled onto Zoom, and it has not only given me as a blind person more access to the things that I need to be a better facilitator when I'm using it, but has just allowed us to do some really great conversations for our clients like Georgia Bikes and Nebraska Department of Public Health, when they're facilitating some of their remote strategy planning meetings or steering committee meetings, especially. So really very exciting to have you doing that. I know we're running a little bit over, so I'm going to try to do a couple things really quickly. We're also going to be having a oh my goodness, excuse me. We're going to be having a upcoming training that I'm looking for the date here. I'm sorry, guys. My computer's doing a little crazy thing here.
Looks like it's March 28th.
Thanks, John. I couldn't get there quick enough. So on March 28th, we're also going to be holding a meeting around the planning process that we use in general, and kind of giving you a little bit more insight into how do we work with organizations, whether they're doing long-range planning, strategic planning, board planning. There are some key pieces to those processes that we use. And so we'll be talking from 4 to 5 Eastern, 1 to 2 Pacific on that day, about principles of collaboration, and what those look like. How do you, again, kind of looking at some of the underscaling pieces of what John and is talking about with the facilitation online. This is a good primer that kind of gives you some of the more basics of how we do planning in general. We're also going to be talking about the power of the design team and how do you create that, make sure that it's strong enough to help you get the information and people engaged that you want to get engaged in your planning process. And also talking about staging what we call an accelerator event. Accelerator events are used in the planning process to really give us an opportunity not just to gather the wisdom from people, but to also create better consensus, more timely consensus around a plan of action. And then going back, if you remember that model I was talking about earlier, for the vision and goals for where we want to go. So now we're able to use that accelerator event so that when everybody leaves that conversation, they know where we're going, and they also know how we're going to get there together and what roles each of them can play, either as volunteers or in a corporate environment, you're talking staff, in order to make that happen. And because we have really focused on these particular things, we're able to increase the buy-in and commitment to succession, or to succeeding when we enter the implementation phase. And so we'll be talking about some of those things. For those of you who really want to get a glimpse into our process, that's the way to do it. For those of you who want to figure out how you can use that process to go virtual, John's is a natural follow-up to that. I also wanted to mention that coming up next Tuesday at 9 a.m. Eastern and 4 p.m. Eastern, we are also helping the International Society of Development and, I'm sorry, I apologize. We're helping International Society of Organization Development and Change by facilitating a webinar that they're doing on implicit bias. This is a really exciting one for us to play a facilitative role for, where we're really helping to craft a dialogue around how does implicit bias affect the work that you're doing. So for some of you who may be leading your company or even doing some consulting, this might be one that you want to check out. And I simply put that out because I really think that putting it, if you look at the other 4 that we're doing, there is this issue that we're facing as a country, as a people, around how do we start to change some of the conversations around race and opportunity. And so it really excites me that we're going to be playing a facilitative role for that as well. You can find, that's not actually our event, but I believe we may have linked to it in a previous blog post, and you can also go to http://ISODC2, I'm sorry, ISODC roundtable 2, the number 2, .eventbrite.com. And Ryan, maybe if you could put that link in the chat window for our folks, that would be good for them. So lots of great opportunities for you to get to know us, what we do, and even learn from us so that you can do what you do even better. And just really exciting, Rob, to be doing this work with you, and to also see, John, what you're doing with media and really leading that 21st century network creation. And of course, Ryan, you helping us behind the scenes, making sure that that's happening as well. Again, lots of training opportunities. You can always find them and the most up-to-date stuff at sgendeavors.com. I know that we've been going for quite a while, and we do need to wrap this up. So Rob, what are just some reflections or thoughts that you may want to leave our listeners with today?
Just know that everyone can really take yourselves to a level that's fantastic. The things that we're talking about through collaborative work, through training, through planning, just even through just having some conversations, is intentional, and it is really moving. It's going to move you, and it's going to move the organization or agency that you're in. We'd love to help you take that path.
I couldn't agree more. And one of the things, Rob, that we always talk about at S&G is that we really want to work with you to think systematically about how you're looking at whatever it is, your organization, your department, your team, your company. But we want to make sure that it's done in a purposeful way that creates a journey for success. And so we're always going to bring you the best practices and the models and the things that we know that are going to help you create the change and take the action that you want to do. And by engaging people in a collaborative way, that's going to be able to make that more successful. And just, Rob, glad to have you on board to help us do that. Glad to be working with all the clients that we are. And I would say be sure to please share this with your friends, your colleagues, or anybody else that you may be talking with that says, man, I wish I could just figure out how to make it better. And let us see how we can help you do that. Never hurts to pick up the phone or send an email, and let's have that initial conversation. So be sure to check us out every couple weeks at coffeewithjeremy.tv. And also make sure you're joining us for all these virtual conversations at sgendeavors.com/conversations. And also check out those upcoming in-person trainings in, excuse me, in DC, Cleveland, and Chicago coming up this year at sgendeavors.com/training. Big thanks to John over in the media line of business for coordinating today's call. You can always find information at sgemediagroup.com about what's happening in that area. And we will talk with you in a couple weeks. Thanks, everybody. And let's go ahead and end today's show. I think Jerry was a little sad.
Oh,